Hello and welcome. This is Pepin from the show called Pepin Reacts. And here I have my best friend ready for a reaction of Breaking Bad Season 2, Episode 5 of the show called Susan Summers. Now let's get into it. But before that, Meader, how you doing? This is my best friend, by the way.
My name's Meader and I'm here too.
Oh, hey. Awesome. Great. The catchphrase.
Susan Summers.
Oh, Susan Summers. You know that
Your
she's
catchphrase.
kind of hot, like on the inside and the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
And
I've seen the pictures.
yeah, the pictures. Now, before we get into this, we had some comments in the last episode. So just to go over those, Drake, the snake, he said octopuses, when they lose an arm, they grow it back. So I really wonder how that's going to come into play in this next episode. And then we actually had a correction. Oh, Meader, did you have something to say there?
No, I'm agreeing with Drake the Snake. I think that's very poignant and it's definitely metaphorical. But I think it'll become pretty apparent as the season goes on.
Okay, awesome. Hopefully it's not spoilery because, I don't like spoilers. I haven't seen the whole thing, but Meader has, but, and then we had this one more comment from George. It's actually a correction. And I'm surprised George just got that username because that's a pretty general username. But he says that Hank isn't what he seems he is. It seems a little bit spoilery there, but I'm just going to go with it. So if he ends up having 6 fingers, okay, I didn't expect it. I mean, I guess it could be a thing, but we'll find out.
Yeah, I won't dive any further into that, but definitely important to point out.
Okay. So before we get into this, we're not sure if this can be a reaction, or a timer-based reaction. So when I say a reaction, I mean a clips reaction. My blood sugar is low. So, hey, let's get into this now. It should be increasing at some point here in the future. Meader, don't make that face. Don't make that face. Oh, shit. It's that face. All right, that was episode 99 of Breaking Bad. This episode, very, very many intricacies. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around the entire plot because a lot was happening and a lot of little character things. What's your general impression of the episode, Meader?
I'm thinking that with the amount of trolling that you do, you're going to end up trolling yourself because you're going to poorly label these videos and then they're going to go into a massive file dump all in the same spot. And then you're going to be trying to edit them together. And it's going to start out with, that was episode 99. And you're like, fuck, now I got to watch this whole thing just to figure out which episode this actually is. Oh, we're talking about the show.
Oh, yes, the show.
Oh, yeah. It was a good episode. Drove a lot of plots forward. And Walt and Jessie made a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mostly, I'd say because of Jessie. So there's a couple aspects to this episode. There's like the Walt aspect, kind of the Skyler aspect, and the Hank aspect. I don't think there's any other characters really discussed too much in this episode, unless I'm mistaken. So who do you think would be the best first person to tackle here?
Maybe Hank, because his is separate.
Okay, so I don't know if you're trying to throw me off the trail last episode in discussion, but it seems like Hank does have like some sort of like a PTSD, and like he was actually affected, and Murray caught on to that too. Like, because I thought the way it was shot and everything, I mean, it just seemed a little strange, especially how he was boxed in that window when he was going through like the interrogation or deposition or whatever. So he's definitely putting on a show and just trying to get through it, but he's just kind of going crazy, and this feels like, you know, and he got a promotion, and he's just kind of like, oh, great promotion, and he does not seem to want to do that at all. Which,
yeah, I mean, the promotion comes with more danger.
Yeah, and he's incredibly affected by that, especially shown by how he reacted when so I feel like there's a metaphor going on there. So he's got like the bottle capping thing, like he's making his own beer with his own face on it, which is kind of cool, right? And they're just like exploding right under pressure, and that's kind of him, you know. That's a big metaphor right there, because he's exploding under pressure right now, and he's been able just to keep it cool, but it seems like he's not going to be able to do that very much longer, so much so that he even pointed the gun at his wife, you know. Of course, he thought there was an intruder there, but that's kind of like a bit of foreshadowing there. He might explode in the wrong direction. And so everyone's super congratulatory of him. And again, we talked about this before, but like he and his colleagues are very, very chummy. Like Hank is a true asshole, but the environment he's working in, like everyone likes that, and everyone is like that. So it's kind of interesting to see that.
Yeah, they're all kind of sociopathic.
And so he's putting on the face, and I thought the lead up to the scene in the elevator, like I feel like some people could watch that and they might get a little bit like caught off guard, like where's this coming from? But the way that they were shooting everything, it just kind of had all these close shots, and also he just had like all this like energy. He just kept on trying to move his limbs and do stuff, and he just couldn't stay still. And that's usually a sign of excess adrenaline. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he had just been promoted, though. So, like, the excess adrenaline being his excitement versus his anxiety is, I think, just as likely.
So, kind of like a dual sort of thing?
Oh, I mean, like, leading up to it. Like, if you had read that as, you know, his excitement versus his anxiety, I think that would be valid.
So, you're accurate with that, because it would be interpreted as he's excited about getting the promotion, but really he's excited in a negative way about the possibility of getting shot at again. And I thought the inclusion of like that sound effect of the car, you know, going up and down, being very, very apt, because they didn't hit us over the head with it. They made it clear and apparent, and it was, I don't know, it was obvious, but not like a punch to the face.
Is it the being shot at that he didn't like? Is it that he murdered somebody?
I don't.
Because I think that would be an interesting parallel to Walt's story, and how they each handle having killed somebody.
I wouldn't think it would be that as much, but again, sometimes I think I approach things too logically. So I'll give you my reasoning here, and then I want to hear your response. So my reasoning is that he kind of does that to a decent degree in his job. I mean, maybe he doesn't kill them directly, bang, bang, but, they do that occasion, I assume, right? Maybe not him directly, because he seems more like an overseer than like a on-the-ground SWAT guy. But, he puts people in jail all the time, and maybe the people he sees deserving of that, but, he wouldn't think that Tuco was not deserving of that either. So I don't, at least my reading of the character, I don't think he would have that. I assume he already had killed people. Maybe that's where I'm approaching it from.
Then why would this be different?
Because he was getting shot at. So if we're under the pretense that...
That's just an interesting assertion. Like, you assume that he's murdered somebody, but not that he has been shot at before. And maybe that speaks more to how the U.S. Law enforcement works. But
yeah, well, it's like when they broke down Jesse's door with the lady he was with, like they didn't stand a chance. Like, they couldn't defend themselves, and that's typically how they do those drug busts. Like they try to make it so that they don't have a chance to defend themselves. So I don't think he's gotten into like any or many altercations like that. If he has, he's had backup with him. So
I guess
that might be me reading way too much into it, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
I think there's no evidence that he's ever been in a hostile situation like that to that degree. Not directly, and not, I guess, definitely not alone.
Yeah, I think the part that he's alone has a big factor in it too, because I think you're right. Maybe it wasn't ever to that degree, and again, I think it's maybe to a lesser degree with people, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge. Maybe I'm overestimating, but
is it possible he also doesn't feel like he deserves it?
The promotion?
Yeah. Or he doesn't deserve the amount of praise that like the credit that he's getting.
I don't know if
he wasn't really there for a work-related thing, It just kind of happened.
I don't know, because I feel like it's more like he doesn't want to get reminded of it, like a la when Walt Jr. was like talking to him, like, hey, what was it like and everything. And it happened in the earlier part of the episode too. Like, they're asking him about the firefight, and like it made it more clear that he was kind of uncomfortable talking about it because it's bringing out the memories. And then we saw him like kind of leave like that area shortly after, because he had to get away to deal with those like emotions and feelings. So I don't know if it's that he's not okay with the promotion. I think he is, or maybe not the promotion, but I think he's okay with the praise. I don't think he's okay with the emotions it brings out, like it bringing back the memories, which is why he threw that into the lake or river or whatever it was.
I mean, you could see that in theory, if we were following the logic of him not liking praise, that was given to him as a sign of praise, as a reward. And like he's rejecting the rewards. I'm more agreeing with you. I'm just bringing up other potential things that could be going on emotionally with him, because nothing's ever one thing,
Yeah,
especially not with emotions.
So let's stay on that for a second, though, because if it was having a factor of like being against the praise, what would that involve exactly? Is that
like imposter syndrome? Feeling like you're getting somewhere without being fully worthy of it, not going to be able to live up to what's being built up of you. He's going to go to this other I'd imagine bigger area. They're moving him to Texas, which I think is going to be a bigger spot than New Mexico. and right on the border where the cartel is. So there's probably going to be very high expectations of his abilities. And to this point, this is like this giant thing just kind of like happened. And his boss said like people like sharks go travel for hundreds of miles to find their prey. You're a great white, like saying that like he was willing to go to track this guy over hundreds of miles. And that's not really what happened. Like he kind of got lucky.
I see. So people are misinterpreting his. Okay. I'm still trying to like get this in my head because I was coming back to the thought of when he was talking about how it's just about appearances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that he would be okay with accepting the praise because it's just about appearances, right? If this makes me look good, hey, I'll take it. But I guess the issue here is it's about appearances, right? It is just about appearances, and this appearance is making him, I mean, look good, but him look like somebody he's actually
live
not.
up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can he live up to his own, like his name's preceding him going into this new area. So, but definitely, I mean, him and Marie both, like that's what they do is they just uphold appearances. And I'm sure that's what she was doing last episode when she had a worried look on her face as you read it and I misread it. And she said like, Hank's a rock. He's fine. I think she knew that it wasn't, but she would never bring it up because that's not Marie. And Hank won't either. Neither of them will bring it up. And we saw that with Hank stopping the elevator, which is kind of a metaphor in and of itself. He's right now in an elevator in his career going up, stopping the elevator, having a panic attack, and then when he's able to get himself under control, stepping out from the elevator and going to join his friends again, or coworkers or friend workers.
Yeah. And okay, maybe this is looking too far into the metaphor, but like you said, he was going up work-wise, but he was also descending. They made that very clear, you know? And so it's kind of like a both at once, and he just wants to stay where he was. He just wants it to stop, like right there. Because I think he did enjoy his other life. I don't know if he's going to enjoy that life, though, wherever he would be going to.
And when they're at the cookout at Hank's house, Marie's just talking about how dangerous it is.
Was she saying that as a way to dissuade him? I wasn't quite catching that.
I don't think so. I think Marie just says whatever's on her mind. She doesn't really think. She just talks.
I see.
And I think that it's kind of like saying what Hank's fears are out loud.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah.
And she always goes to the dramatic too. Like, remember when last episode when Walt was coming out of the fugue state, and the first thing she said was, well, what they say the worst case scenario is? Like, she didn't ask like what was the best case. She asked what was the worst case scenario. That's Marie. Always thinking worst case scenario, always taking things to the dramatic 11.
Yeah, she's pretty extreme. That's why I like her, though. She's highly entertaining. So, it does make me think a bit more about Hank. Like, I like what they're doing with Hank because he gets more and more interesting as the episodes go on. And yeah, I guess it was a bit of both. He's throwing out the. Also, you think about like the. Okay, I'm going too crazy with thought here, but we think about what he threw out. It was the gold veneers,
Grill.
wherever they were, the grills, and the grill is like an appearance-based thing too, right? You know, it's trying to make you look better than you look. I guess. Well, not everybody finds those to look nice, but you know, in that community, it's kind of what they're about. So there's also like a double, like stacking there of meaning.
Definitely, that's very apt. I think, you know, I brought up the potential that murdering somebody could be affecting him. You know, I'd probably I like the idea of that, and I think it would be an interesting thing for them to explore. But I think based on everything we've seen, that's not the case, especially when Hank and Walt were Walt Jr. were talking about, you know, killing Tuco, and he said, like, what do you do when a cockroach comes out? You step on it. You don't think about it. Like, why do people do these bad things, and Hank's like, you might as well ask why cockroaches do it. Like, he doesn't think of them as humans.
Yeah.
So maybe that is the parallel that we end up seeing between Walt killing someone and Hank killing someone, in that neither of them does it really affect them in like that sort of a negative way. They don't even think about the murder. They think about other things associated with that, like their own danger or things like that.
Yeah. Walt did seem like he was like very regretful and remorseful of it, but you know, after he did that, like, it's kind of like to say, like, once you start, it's kind of hard to stop that from being like an option.
Just like Pringles.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's true of Hank, but yeah, kind of what we're saying there, because he's treated druggies in the past like as if they're nothing, and which still makes me think that maybe that was still his primary concern. It's not about killing somebody. I'm sure there's a bit of that in there too, because there has to be, right? It's still gonna fuck you up a little bit.
Not if you're a complete sociopath, no.
Okay, true.
But go on.
But I still think it's mostly the danger to his life is what kind of messed him up.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Walt it was a little bit the opposite. It wasn't the danger to his life necessarily. It was more the danger to his family, but also maybe to the other person. He was more thinking about the other person, I think, a little bit more focused on them.
Maybe so. I think, that whole episode where he did that, it was all about change. So maybe there was also some aspect of him being concerned about it changing him by doing that thing,
Mm-hmm. That's right. The metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And then I think
will this start a change that can't be undone type of deal.
Yeah. And then the scene with Hank was kind of interesting. The scene with Hank and Walt Jr., because it kind of showed Walt Sr. There as well, kind of listening over. And both Hank and Walt feel uncomfortable for two different reasons. And then we have the third perspective, which is Walt Jr., where he's just kind of like, he's kind of like everybody else. He's like, oh, what was it like? Was it cool killing them? It didn't quite say that, but it's there's three different perspectives in there, and like they're all layered on top of each other in like a very natural way.
Yeah, that's good observation on that.
Mm-hmm. So I think that covers Hank pretty much. I still just find it entertaining that he had that whole beer thing, and it seems like he had a bunch of other little toys there too. And I think one more thing I'll cover with Hank, and this is a baseless assumption here, but I still feel like there's something weird going on like with Marie and Hank and like a kid, because as far as we know, they don't have kids, and it's kind of like Hank has nothing to do really, or he's just kind of doing whatever, which I think is great. Like I think that's what you should do, especially if you don't have kids. Don't have kids if you want to do stuff. But there seemed to be a little bit of tension there, and I remember that episode where there's that kid in the car, and the car like went into the other thing and drove it over. So I think there's something weird going on there, like some sort of weird divide that's not being talked about, but I have no idea.
Maybe that feels very baseless, and maybe like you're projecting, but
I'm projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Shit.
It's just because I didn't get any of that, but I also thought Marie was fine with Hank, and she clearly had concerns on her face in that scene. So
yeah, I might be misreading it, which is fine.
I ain't infallible.
Yep. Last episode.
Exactly. You should mark it on your calendar.
Steve's wrong.
Circle it with a fucking heart.
So the next character we had, let's cover. I think Jessie's the most.
Do you want to touch on Marie briefly?
Yeah, sure.
She had a couple of things in there, right? Her being dramatic, her scene with Skyler. Which it sounds like you're not going to talk about Skyler, or you'll probably wrap it in with Walt. So I figure this might be the best time to bring her up.
Okay. So first thing you said, actually said a couple of things there. You're talking about how Marie was kind of blabbing her mouth about like the dangers and everything. You think Marie is excited for this, or is she scared about this move for Hank? Because I can't read that.
I think she's excited. I think the danger excites her because that's what she likes, is all of the dramatic stuff. She's going to get to brag. Probably means more money. I think this is exactly what Marie wants, and she sees this as a stepping stone to get to what she really wants, which is living in the nice, cozy capital. And she's already talking about a couple of years down the road.
I see. That makes sense. Okay, so that makes more, because I was hearing about the whole capital thing, but I got lost in my thought when that was going on. So okay, so besides that, there was, I think you brought up the kitchen scene there, which I thought was pretty interesting. Now, I misread that scene because she said, "I'm sorry," after finally coming out with it. And I thought it was going to be like, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about." Because maybe that's what she said last time. Or maybe I'm thinking of Walt. Oh, is that what it was?
I mean, I think both, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both there. Because, okay, so as I was me, "I'm sorry." And then, because there was a little bit of tension, "I'm sorry." Whereas Walt said, "I'm sorry, I can't tell you." Or, "Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about." So some parallels there, but also she's redeemed herself a bit too. And it's, I guess, a little bit of a fake out. But she actually apologized there, which is interesting, because when it came down to it, when her family was in jeopardy, I'm not gonna say she caved, but she found out what mattered to her.
Yeah, it comes back to that whole family thing. Seems to be another central theme.
Which is intriguing, because the parallel with that is Walt, who, when it came down to it, he couldn't tell her. He didn't come clean. And their irony is that Walt is supposedly literally doing it for his family.
Yeah, but I think Walt sees it as the opposite. So, like, if Marie didn't admit to it, like, it was already known what she had done, and she was pretty much, Skyler was saying, "You're forgiven if you apologize." If I'm imagining in Walt's mind, if he tells Skyler, "I've been cooking meth," it's over. If he lies and kind of buys time and tries to come up with a better lie or something, then he at least postpones that. I think Walt had less options than Marie did.
That's true. Yeah, because essentially Marie could actually get resolution by apologizing or coming clean or whatever you want to say. Whereas Walt would just take like a grenade and then blow up the entire room there.
You know what's really interesting that I'm thinking about now is thinking about each character. It seems like every character was the opposite of how they normally are this episode.
Yep. That's definitely true. And that's a point I think I was bringing up a little bit there, because Jessie was more like Walt this episode, and he was the aggressor, like kind of like how Walt had been. And there's been some stuff with that where Jesse's kind of like a sponge. He hears something and he kind of parrots it, but here he has a bit more internalized, and he was actually running a legit business. And then we had Skyler, who's usually more, I mean, she's passive aggressive the last couple episodes, but she was very aggressive this episode. And their two roles have definitely kind of swapped there, where Walt was more like the passive one, a little bit more aggressive.
She was also the one on the defense this time. And in the past, as long as I can remember in the episodes, Walt has been the one on the defense because Skyler's had the high ground.
Yeah, that's true. So that's a bit swapped there as well, because she's
Hank's broken down. Normally he's very strong.
Oh yeah. Marie, is she different? Yeah, she's a little bit different.
I mean,
she came clean.
She had to admit to the truth, which is the thing she hasn't done the whole fucking series. She also dropped a little like throwaway line saying like Dr. Mike or whatever said that I should say that. So, which implies that she's actually going to therapy now. Which is the opposite of what we've seen from her in the past.
I wonder if that's because she is recognizing that the rift is causing between her and her sister, and that she doesn't like that, and she wants to like resolve that.
Maybe it's possible she's lying. I'll at least say, so we don't get destroyed in the comments, that it's possible she's lying. But based on the way she said it, it didn't seem like it. It seemed like she was like genuinely saying like, "This is something I've been thinking about and talked about in the past." Just came very natural. Not that I don't think she would say something anyway, because she just says whatever she's thinking regardless.
So let's just cover this real quick. So Hank, he's usually like iron tight and clad. This episode, he was frightened and I don't know, paranoid. Walt typically, actually Walt's kind of confused because he kind of goes all over the place. But usually he's been more aggressive these last couple episodes and assertive and controlling. Here he seems very passive and is kind of concerned, mostly about Skyler because he suspects Skyler is.
I mean, with Jessie too, he backed down. He admitted his own faults. There was every step of the way he's been very much pulled back. Oh,
you're right. Yeah, that's right. Because Jessie literally had him at the balls there. Like it was pretty intense. Jessie, who's usually just like a flunker or a fluky, he was taking life at the balls. He was making those a business. Like he did not shit where he was eating. He set the record straight with his friends. Like there's a lot that he was doing there, which is just complete opposite. And in a way, he was living up to his potential, which I found very interesting.
He was also applying things that he learned very, very effectively, which came very clear. And you called it parroting, and there is a lot of parroting he does, but I think he also learns and knows how to apply things, and that's kind of what it's showing by having him like use that acronym to shortly after he had just learned it. And being humble enough to ask, like, okay, I don't know what that actually means.
I think with Jessie, it's a little bit like if he learns something and it seems like, that makes sense, he'll just kind of like take it in. It maybe takes a little bit of experience, but I think it's being more open to like just like I don't know, people with competence, if that makes any sense, or just people who seem cool, all right. But anyways, we had Jessie, who was quite different there. I think we touched on Marie. I think that's the big four characters there. Skyler, obviously, she's overly concerned about everybody and the health of the baby and everything, and now she's like not in a way. She is, but she's not. I mean, we'll get to her in a second. But I think the two characters that did not flip flop here at all is number one, Walt Jr. He stayed solid like a rock, and Lewis. I mean, he's perfect. You can't flip flop from perfect. Like the inverse of perfection is perfection.
Walt Jr. stayed solid because he's the best written character. He's the most relatable. And I don't even know if he has any flaws.
So I don't know if I agree. Okay, I think he's the most relatable for most people. I can say that.
He is the audience.
But for me, Walt Sr. is the most relatable.
Well, that's because you cook meth.
That's true. I mean, down in my basement, that's what I got of this 3-story apartment.
No.
Yep. So going on to Walt. Walt, he was kind of more reactive and just kind of like, I don't know, he just seemed confused of what to do. And I'm trying to remember the different scenes here because he was going through the chemo alone, and it actually seems like he might be getting better, which that would be, I don't know. I'd find it like weird in like a dark humor sort of way if like Walt gets better and then he still feels the need to like start cooking drugs still, because the impetus for him cooking meth to begin with is not there, but he still has to cook it because he's got addicted to the gun. And that would be interesting. Is
he done with chemo? Is that what the implication there was?
No, I don't think the implication was he was done with chemo, but the doctor said that he was doing very, very well. And I think I might be wrong, but I believe the doctor said that if things keep going this way, you might be, pretty much good by the time the baby's delivered.
Yeah.
Whereas before,
interesting.
I think the baby was not even gonna. He wasn't even gonna make it to the baby. No, I'm probably wrong in that. I don't know the timeline exactly, but the impetus for him doing any of this is not there, which is hilarious in a fucked up sort of way. Because what does he do? I mean, he's still cooking meth. I mean, he's got the doctor's bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, this idea of him having gray matter in the background who could solve his issue of the money, and him not taking it, it still points to him wanting that gun. And there's a scene where he he went into like the vent, grabbed the money, grabbed the gun, and he held the gun like he was just kind of itching to use it. And this is confirmation bias 100%. Like, I had this theory about Walt, and I'm gonna like try to prove it as much as I can just to prove I'm right. I'm taking this and right down the yard.
But I mean, at the end, he gives up the gun.
True, but I think it was more of a rational move. Hold on. Let me think about this
It's
a little
like,
bit.
somebody please use this gun.
I think it's because Jessie was making sense. Because they had that argument, and Jessie was talking about the all the needs that they had for needing, like, is this part of the territory? And Walt wasn't even quite understanding that. And Walt just wanted like a magic solution. And Walt came up with a solution, which was the gun. I don't know if that's him giving up the gun, but more incorporating it into the business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he is physically giving up the gun.
Yeah,
At very least, he's removing it from his house.
that's true. So, is there a greater argument? I'm trying to process that. I'm just not doing it fast enough.
No, I mean, you just said you were trying to make a point about Walt, like a bigger character point, and I'm just offering up some minor hurdles that might be in the way. And I mean, this comes right after, interestingly enough, right after his fight with Skyler. The first thing he does is he gives the gun up. So I'm wondering if that might mean something.
Huh. I kind of think it might. Hold on. Maybe I got it here. Because I think you have a point. Number one, he's thinking about the impact he's been having on his family. And also what Skyler's doing, because... and we'll get to the sick irony here, but with Skyler smoking cigarettes and, cancer and blah, blah, blah. But Walt, granted that the doctor said he might be all right, like, he may not really see a need for cooking meth. And maybe that's what it's about. And maybe that's him trying to get away from the business.
You know what else is super interesting? So we haven't seen the hat in a while, right? But the other thing that's kind of indicative of Heisenberg is his bald head. And the doctor said, you'll be able to start growing your hair back. And Walt's like, well, I've kind of gotten used to this look. So maybe there's some, underlying thought there behind, like, he's comfortable as, this new character of Heisenberg. And the doctor saying, like, well, Heisenberg may not be a necessity anymore. And him being like, but I don't mind him.
Yeah. I guess maybe what this is there's the two different characters. There's the Walt and the Heisenberg. And for Walt, he's the one that's giving up the gun.
Ah. The eyes, though, when he told Jessie, handle it, those were not Walt's eyes. Those were Heisenberg.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
The Heisenberg, and I almost feel like now that when the doctor was telling him that, like, for Heisenberg, that was almost a curse. Like, because
like he's telling Walt, you're gonna live, Heisenberg, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe so. Do you think he's gonna kill the doctor?
Probably. Yeah, that try to get him hooked on meth.
Yeah.
Maybe
that'd be a really good one. He should do that. Do you know how much meth he could buy with his doctor salary?
About 2.
At least 2 meth.
Yeah.
Labs.
Yeah, two meth. Maybe 1 weed. So there's some maybe that's the best way to approach Walt in the future is Walt and Heisenberg, and kind of treating them like two people who inhabit the same body. But I also think it's interesting because they kind of synergize there a bit too. Like they're partially in harmony. And I think the true Walt is kind of like more like Heisenberg, or it's more like the controlling sort of chemistry person. I think that's the true Walt. But the true Walt can't get injected into Walt's sort of like everyday life and dealing with just like small troubles. And this is why the true Walt is most himself as Heisenberg. So I feel like it's more like the context, that the only context in Walt's life that can get applied there. I guess there was a chemistry job, right? And that's where he could get a bit of that out. But the problem is it's kids, right? And there's only so far you can go up with that. So Walt was also very concerned about Skyler this episode, and he got the cigarettes. He found those, and he seemed just very concerned about the baby, which there's a strong irony with that, because it's like Walt got lung cancer, I believe. It's lung cancer, right? And he is taking up this venture of cooking meth for the sake of his family, but also for the sake of the baby. And by his actions, he's not only breaking up the family, but now Skyler is smoking and causing the thing that he got there, because smoking, lung cancer, hand in hand. So there's like a weird sort of like sick irony there. I can't quite vocalize it, but it's something there.
Yeah, and I mean the baby represents the future, the family future, and Walt has always kept, and maybe this goes back to the gun too, but he's always kept the money and the gun in the baby's room, because that's what it was going towards, right? The future of the family. And now all the money's gone, and until the most recent sale, and the gun is out of that room. And meanwhile, on Skyler's side, the other half of the adults in the family, she's forsaking the future of the family by smoking the cigarettes. So it's kind of showing to Walt, like, this is how Skyler's thinking about the future of us as a family. And I'm sure that's what's bothering him more than anything. Being like, am I losing my family? Is she giving up on the family?
Yeah. He probably has a hard time processing that too, because like he's so wrapped up in his story, it's hard. He's having a hard time considering the other stories that play here. Like as evidenced by like when he says, you're his mother, you're supposed to know where he is, about Walt Jr. Like, I don't know. Walt was just saying a lot of dumb things this episode.
That was really fucking dumb. Like, why was he getting on his pregnant wife about something like that he himself didn't know the end? I don't know. That was very, very annoying. Yeah,
and his talking with Jessie, like, Jessie was being super sensible, and he's just being stupid. Some
of the time. I mean, I think his point that in a black market business, if word gets out that or a pushover, everybody will push you over. Like, these are junkies you're dealing to. It's not, this isn't a blue collar business. This is literally as under the table as you can get. There'll be a lot of knives and guns pointed in your direction if they think they can get away with it.
Which is true. But I think it's the turning point, though, because that's the turning point in which Walt made some sense out of things. And maybe it's the question of whether it was that Walt or was that Heisenberg that came out there, which, obviously more Heisenberg. But I don't think Walt had that point at the beginning of that conversation. I think he arrived there.
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. Maybe it's like decreased disagreement, but that's okay. But yeah, some of the stuff he was talking with Jessie, like inside the truck or the RV, like he was also just kind of talking out of his ass there. And then Walt realized he was on the back foot. Like, he can't sell, and it's kind of like if you have product but you can't sell it, then you don't have any product.
he also tipped his hand by saying, like, I have nothing. And, like, that he doesn't have any more lies that he can go back on to be like, you need me more than I need you. It was made very clear that Walt does need Jessie more than Jessie needs Walt. So, Walt kind of tipped his hand, and maybe that was a he trusted Jessie type of thing. And I don't know if he felt betrayed by that or if he was happy by that because, Jessie's now taking on some of the actual responsibility versus Walt feeling like he has to handle everything, or how he'll feel about that. But he's definitely willing to, I think maybe him, and I'm sorry for jumping completely forward, but I think by him giving up the gun, it might be him being like, all right, you've shown you can do this thing. Now show you can really hold the power. If you want to hold the power, let's do this. Hold the power. If we're making the comparison of the gun to power.
Yeah, I'm interested what's going to happen with that.
Yeah.
We're kind of at the point in the series where I don't know what's happening.
I love that.
Because
now you can freely guess and you don't need to be like, do I know this? Don't I know this? I don't remember. I think I know something. This is all I don't know.
Truth be told, I've seen these episodes. Like, I started this episode. I don't remember, like, any of it, though. The only part I remembered is, like, them going through that, like, a river. And then I remember bits and pieces of, like, an episode a little bit later, but I don't remember anything else. So I'm kind of at that point where, I don't know. But, yeah, Walt's very confusing in this episode. He's definitely a bit more wishy-washy. But maybe it's because he's a bit more Walt. And then we see Skyler being not Skyler. I guess everybody else not being themselves either. So in a way, Walt's more of the reference than anybody else. But
it's kind of like a shakeup of all of the, like, everybody was brought to the lowest of the low, and now we're starting to build again. And how our character's going to pan out going forward, given they're building on the past and the present and the future.
So that's about it I can think for Walt. Can you think of anything else? No.
No, I mean, his minor reaction or interaction with Hank was super interesting, even though it was only a couple seconds. Just like his question of, I'm interested, why do you think he asked, what do you think makes these criminals act the way they act and do what they do?
It seemed like he was curious for himself. Like, I feel like it was like a bit of introspection. Because I don't think he understands what he's doing or why he's doing it. And again, confirmation bias here with my theory. But I think Walt is realizing that there's this other part of him that's kind of taking control and wants to survive and wants to do these things that the other parts of him maybe don't. And he's trying to figure out for himself, like, why am I like this?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And also, I think it's just general curiosity, too, because when you see a guy like Tuco, like, you're probably just like, how did this happen?
Yeah. That might be interesting then, and that may play somewhat of a role of why Walt was willing to give up the gun at the end, on top of all the other stuff we've talked about. But Hank's response was like, because bugs are bugs, like, because disgusting creatures do disgusting things. Like, why it's not even really a question. It's like, why is a cockroach a cockroach? And to Walt, maybe that did hit him.
Yeah. I wonder how he processed that, because did he process that like Hank is being Hank, or Hank is oversimplifying this complex world, or did he process it like, shit?
Yeah, I'm a scumbag. Also, is it possible he had ulterior motive in asking that, to try and think like, could Hank be onto me in any degree? What's Hank's thought process? And we know Hank doesn't think Walt is a scumbag, so maybe that was confirming to Walt, like, Hank would not ever suspect me because I don't match his vision of what this character, this drug dealer, is.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's a thing there because that's one reason why Hanks has not been suspecting Walt is because Hank's view is very naive, and I guess it's Walt trying to get a lens into whether Hank is suspicious or would be suspicious, or if they're suspicious, or maybe ideas like, can people like Walt get into that world? Does that happen? And from Hank's view, no.
Very interesting.
So on to the last character here, Jessie. And Jessie, I think we saw the most change from here. And honestly, I mean, he talked the same game he did before, which I thought was really cringy, but he actually followed up on it. And I think there's a difference there because I guess Walt was desperate in a way this episode because he needed Jessie. Like, Jessie found he needed himself. And it's like, I guess when you lose everything, like he really did lose everything. He lost his house. He lost the van or the RV, and lost his car. Like there's nothing that he just didn't have. And I think he finally just realized or epitosed. What the fuck was that word? He optimized. That's not even a word either. He just kind of like distinction in his mind, like, I do need to apply myself. I actually have to do this. And he started trying, and he was very successful. And this goes back to Walt's point that you're not applying yourself. It's not that you're stupid. It's not that you're dumb. It's not that you can't do things. It's just that you don't do things.
Yeah. No, I mean, he did salesman-y things every single step of the way. He used the skills that he's good at to his advantage. He also got some breaks from people, which last episode he was given no breaks by anybody. He was begging people to give him a break, and nobody would. And this time, he did. And that is something in sales, you know, for what it's worth. Sometimes you can go a very long time without a sale, and then all of a sudden a switch turns and you sell. And there's something about confidence in there, being a difference maker, but all very interesting. And Jessie was willing to ask for what he wanted confidently, and he was able to convince people who didn't want to otherwise do business with him. Actually, I think he was met with objections every step of the way from every person, and he overcame them. Instead of getting angry and being like, this is owed to me, he earned it in a way, or at least talked himself into getting what he needed.
Well, if you think a little bit with what was involved in all of those interactions as well, money was involved. And not just that, but he had the money in his hand. Like, so there was the instance of, like, with the landlord, he had the money there, and he kept on, like, pointing to it, like, hey, I'm good. He did that with the junkyard person.
I don't think she cared about money.
Well, she still wanted...
She was taking pity on him.
Yeah, but ultimately, she wanted to make sure he was good for the money. Right? Like, he was suspicious of where... Like, she knew where he was getting it from. You know, she knew it was, like, something nefarious. But, you know, I think him making the point that he was good for that money and could do the extra was important. Same with the junkyard guy. You know, he got them flaunting it. And then one interesting difference here is he did it with Walt, too. He gave him the cash. You know, Walt started bitching about the money, which Walt stopped bitching. You're not putting your life on the line. But he flaunted it so much so that he threw $1,000 at him. Like, all right, stop complaining. And what's kind of interesting is where all the other people took the extra money on top of it, Walt didn't. And that was kind of a break in that pattern there, which I think says something about the relationship they have. It's a little bit different, but I think it is a confidence. I think it's the money that made the difference with Jessie. And Jessie was also able to convince his friends, if I think they're friends, but they're a little bit weird friends. I don't know. Companions? What's the word?
Business associates. I don't know. It's really none of those things, because they're very fair weather friends. It was clear they only came over to, like, get drugs. Yeah. So, like, and when he needed something, when he needed them, all of them said no. So, like, that's not friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was literally out on the street. If any of my friends were on the street, there's no question they'd be at my house.
Mm-hmm. So he convinced them with money as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the through line with Jessie this episode is money and
I mean,
resources.
you say that, but money isn't the only thing, you know? He also talked. Like, he didn't give them any money. He convinced them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he talked his way into all of these things. I think there was a confidence that he showed along with the money in a lot of these situations, but there was a confidence he showed that showed he could run the business and he could handle things. And I think that maybe that came from the money. Maybe that came from, knowing he could do this. But I think that his salesmanship and his personality won people over as much as the money did in a lot of these situations, more than the money did.
I think the thing that was there that was missing from his previous sales pitches was that he had that little bit of an edge, that little aggression. I think that was most instituted where he did it in every interaction, but he did it with his friends. Like, he made it very clear, hey, no smoking, you got to do it before, and he was very straightforward. He's like, this is a business right here. Like, we're going to make money, right? We're making money. This is business. And he set the rules there. He did the same thing. He took an aggressive tone with the junkyard person because they're cutting the deal. And he's like, I need I don't know, he said door rights or something like that. And, in and out access. And the guy's like, what? No. And he just kept on making demands and just kind of upping it. Like, he had
negotiating. Yeah. Did a good job.
He did it in a very aggressive, pushy sort of way, but maybe not pushy, but
for sure.
And same thing with Walt, And so I think you're right there. But I think what made the difference was the aggression or the control. Maybe it's because he has control of his life now, and he's willing to make that push.
And he's taking control of his life. And maybe I think we're talking about the same thing. I think I phrased it as confidence, and you're phrasing it as aggression. But I think they're two sides of the same coin here. Yeah.
And so he gets the deal with the landlord, and the landlord cuts them a break essentially. Do you think there was any sexual tension there? I don't think there was. But
I mean, for sure.
There was some sexual tension?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I didn't know if there was or not.
I think they found each other attractive, and she thought he was cute and amusing. And she also related to him. And that's one of the other things that I think that's something big that Jessie did, is Jessie spoke the person he was talking with's language. So he knew what he needed to say to people to get what he wanted. And that's the salesman thing, for her. When she broke down was when he was when he broke down and told the truth, but also a very specific version of the truth. My parents kicked me out. They were disappointed in me. I guess I don't live up to their expectations. And that was right after she had said, my dad owns this place. I just manage it for him. And he was grasped onto that and then gave his own little, this is how I relate to that. My parents think I'm a disappointment, blah, blah, blah.
Ooh, that's interesting. So he exploited on that, or he capitalized on that relation there.
He utilized something common between them to connect with her. And I think he did that across the board. And yeah, that can be seen as definitely exploiting.
Yeah. Well,
you think everything's exploiting. We've talked about that.
Yeah. Just a brief little thing. Everything is manipulation. It's just positive or negative, or it's pro-social or anti-social, or collaborative or anti-collaborative. This was probably a collaborative one, but definitely a bit more exploitive in a way, because he's using this knowledge to his advantage, which that's all knowledge. But
this is a completely different topic because I disagree with you, so we'll save that for some other time.
Yeah. All right. So he does that with that. He gets to the place, and then he also brings in his friends, and he's very adult about it. He had snacks and pretzels. I mean, he poured the pretzels improperly. They started flowing all over the place, which, yeah, but he's got a nice place there. And he sets ground rules. He gets the deal with the RV. And then he makes a deal with Walt. And I think Jesse's perspective is valid and accurate on this whole thing because he's playing the game like it's been played. And then I think Walt has a good point too, where you have to set the rules. Like Jesse's playing the rules that have been set. You know, like this is how you deal drugs, this is how you kind of handle these situations. And he's very good at doing that. Walt's very good at breaking rules or kind of setting his own rules. I love Tuco because that's what Tuco kind of did. I mean, Tuco kind of set his own rules and he also had muscle. And that's kind of why Tuco didn't get messed with because number one, he's a high up distributor. Number two, you know, he always had people with him, you know, and guns and everything during these exchanges. So that's kind of how you ensure it. But I don't know how Jesse's going to handle that. And there's a scene where they kind of came in together and Walt kind of goes to Jesse's door for once, right? Not the other way around. And Walt seems a little bit envious of what Jesse has. And kind of the same way like when Jesse came into Walt's place and Walt's had a nice place. So some interesting stuff there going on. I've been off ranting here for a bit, so I want to hear what you have to say about Jesse.
No, I mean I'm on board with everything you're saying. I think it's all very very on point. There was something. Okay. I think Jesse understands the business. He understands like the legitimate business side of things. But I think Walt understands the like dirty business side of things. Like Jesse understands that, you know, you're going to have loss. This is how you manage people. You need runners and you need people to sell the product and move it and, you know, dead drops and like all of that stuff. But Walt understands like they're on a higher level. This is like the underground market. And this is how you need to handle like this side of things, the dirtier side of things. So I think that's very interesting. Jesse's ready to write that off and Walt isn't because Walt's seeing it like further down the road. This is going to become a problem. And Jesse's like, well, it's a small problem now, so we'll ignore it and just write it off. Like Jesse's quick to take the win that they have and Walt wants more.
Yeah. Walt's definitely the greedier of the two. But Walt also has like far more extreme goals. And also Walt's very good at doing math because we've seen him do calculations. Like,
yeah, I mean that one was pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's like $1,000 per ounce, 16 ounces, 16,000. That's not very difficult.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. But Walt has he's got like high goals, and I feel like he sees more things that's more like a manufacturing sort of place does. Like I don't know. He sees it. I'm not gonna say he sees it like a business because Jesse sees it more like a business than Walt does. I think because Jesse's thinking more about the operational procedures. But
Jesse sees it as a legitimate business, and Walt sees it as an underground business, like a black market.
Yeah,
because Walt's the first one to be like, we need to handle this in an aggressive way, and Walt's quicker to go to aggression than Jesse is.
That's true. Yeah. Even when like Jesse shot Tuco, Jesse like seemed like he had to work himself up to that. I'm sure Walt would have to a little bit too, but I don't know. Walt seemed very indignant when he did the whole like Tuco speech. So I don't know. But it's really gonna be interesting to see where this goes. Is there anything else where Jesse you can think of?
No.
Okay. So I think we're gonna cut it here. We've been talking for a bit here. This has been recording for an hour 27, but I think it's been a little bit longer. Granted that I cut this into 2. So hey guys, if you like the video, like the video. If you hate the video, like the video. If you don't like the video, like the video. If you like Meader, like the video. If you like me, leave a comment, subscribe, notification bell, ding, 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 ding. And as always, be peaceful, be mindful, make meth in your mother's basement, not mine. You guys have a great day. Peace.